Hi everyone. So this is like a bit of a spontaneous video. I thought it'd be just a useful exercise for some of you to see a few certain things. Now also after doing the Git tutorial, I'll do a sort of a real world example of where you'd use Git cherry pick, which can be a very useful feature, as well as some sort of other multi-threading stuff I actually used yesterday, and then I thought to myself, oh, this would actually be a really good thing to go through with the students because it shows some good concepts. Now, it all came about because Philip, the golden tutor, which some of you might have already had contact with, he's like, Alex, hey man, the font stuff that you did in the drawing stuff's a bit hacky. You can't really change the size or the font style. It's sort of like you set it in the defines and then it's fixed, which is a bit crap, right? So it's like, oh yeah, okay, cool. So I spent the afternoon implementing some stuff. I implemented TUM font, so I essentially pulled the fonts out and made it a bit more feature rich. And so why I'm sort of saying that this cherry pick thing is a good example is because now I created a pull request, which then Philip looked at, reviewed, tested it on his machine to make sure it's not just working on my machine, and now we've got it. It's been merged into the master branch. It's all verified and whatnot, and so now we have this. This is sort of like a common situation in that many of you who have already forked the emulator, like those who have still yet to fork it, will get these updates anyway because you'll fork the most up-to-date copy. And since it's been merged already, these changes are in there. But those of you who've already forked the repository, you now have this problem that I've implemented a feature which would be very useful for you that you don't have in your code base. And so what you could do is you could delete your fork and refork it. I mean, if you haven't done anything yet, really, that's probably the easiest solution, to be honest. But for sort of like, showing you how you would really do it, I'm going to show a few different ways. Also, I'll talk about one way which I can't really do, I don't want to do, but what you could theoretically do, and then I'll talk about cherry pick and how you do it. So if we go into my FreeRTOS emulator, you'll see here what I did yesterday was essentially these are the two commits that I packaged into this pull request. Essentially I split the work I did yesterday into the code that goes into main, like I did some example code just to test it, and then the actual backend implementation. So if we look at this commit here, there's changes to you'll see the addition. If we look at 4 files, so I added in these 2 font files and I modified the draw file because essentially I just pulled the font stuff out of them and put them into these files here. As you can see, it's pretty much just deletions in those draw files. But why I tried to petition this, and it was actually Philip's idea, I didn't really think of this at the beginning, was that let's say that you forked my FreeRTOS emulator a week ago and you've started implementing some stuff. Mainly, you'll be working pretty much in a main or in auxiliary files that you create. Like you shouldn't be working in the library files. Like you shouldn't be really directly modifying the library files. And so if you were working in main and you were just to then update from upstream, which I'll explain in a second, you would get merge conflicts because your main is drastically different to the main in my main repository, right? And so I think I mentioned briefly in some of the Git tutorials about sort of like this rebasing or merging from upstream. And so let's like keeping a fork up to date from upstream. Now, I also need to Google this every time I use it. But essentially the process is you add a remote, so meaning you add a remote server, like a copy of the code, a repository, and then you can merge that repository into your repository, and you set my FreeRTOS emulator repository as the upstream, as this remote, and then you can just merge the changes into yours. So we'll just get here, whoever this guy is. See. No, he's not doing it very in the right way. Let's see what Google has to say. I think this one's the one that I showed in the Git lectures. So if you were to go down this path, and for those of you who haven't really modified main, try this out. It'll be an interesting exercise for you because the worst case, if you get merge conflicts and you can't sort it, delete your fork and recreate it. So, but to delete it, you go into settings and there's like a little box at the bottom where you click delete and you have to type in the repository name. and then you can just go back to my repository and click fork again. But so this really is the two steps that you need. You need to add this upstream, and in here you'd put my repositories link, which you can find, which is this guy here, right? Or with HTTPS, probably something like this for you guys. So where was it? So you'll add this, and then you'll fetch it, so it gets the changes, and then you pull from from the upstream into your master, right? And so this adds the changes. Now this can create merge conflicts for you if you've already modified your main. So this is, I'm just going to say it. I'm not going to do it, and also I can't really do it because I am this upstream. But so now what I'm going to talk about is more so like you've modified your main, you have changes, and so if you were to do this, you probably get merge conflicts. Now for most of us, or like not for most of us, for some of us, you'd be happy to go through and fix the merge conflicts. I mean, it's probably not that hard, but if you're not really super savvy with Git, the safer way is to go and do the cherry pick. And so if you should know from the cherry picking, that what cherry picking does is it takes a commit, like, I think hopefully, the sort of expression in English, where it means that you just go and you just get one thing, right? And so you're going to go and you're going to get that one commit and merge it in, because this is why I've split this pull request into these two commits. So like we had this one commit here, which modifies the library files, and then we have this other commit that modifies just main. And so as you can see here, I've essentially just put the include in, and then I've added a couple of lines to sort of give examples as to how you use this. But it's not really super complex. You don't really need to merge this in. You can just use this code as a reference to implement your own stuff, which is now also documented in here in TUM Font. I should mention that I documented this yesterday as well. But I'll go through a bit at the end of this video. I might just stop and do a separate quick video on using TUM Font, because it wasn't in the code when I did my little code breakdowns. It's not super essential to the project. You can probably just leave the default font, but if you wanted to get a bit creative, then it's definitely useful to know. So anyway, now we've got this one commit that's been merged into master, but essentially if you go into this commit list and you'll find the commit, there's the commit ID here, but also if you click on the commit, you'll come to this page and you can see the full commit, like the full commit ID here. Now on my computer, I've merged the pull request into master via the GitHub web interface, but I haven't actually updated my branch that I have local on my computer to these changes, so I can actually cherry pick the changes into my master to sort of show what it would be like for you. So let's go and do that. We'll go into my repository. I'll go to master. Now, if I was to pull master, then I would get the changes, but I'm just going to not do that. And we'll see here this is the last commit. This is from Philip. And if we look at the commit history, add hint to basic prerequisites. So yep, my branch is sitting right here before the changes have happened. So then really, if you did the Git tutorial, you should see it's pretty simple with Git cherry pick. If we look at the cherry pick at the documentation, the command is essentially just git cherry pick, and then you have all of these options, and then you just put in the commit ID that you want at the end. So we don't really want any of this stuff. This is also a bit more complex. But given one or more existing commits, apply the changes each one introduces. So this is exactly what we want to do. We want to take this one commit and we want to apply just these changes to the library files so that we don't mess with our main and get the merge conflicts, but so we get the nice new juicy features of putting in fonts and whatnot, and probably finding bugs that I need to fix. I hope there's no bugs in there, but it was done in one afternoon, so fingers crossed. So anyway, now we have our commit ID from here. We can just click this to, well, I should have just copied it, but I'm going to go and take this guy. And now we're going to merge it. So we're going to cherry pick it. So the whole, it's just git cherry pick, and then we'll put in the commit ID. And we'll see, okay, we've had 4 files changed, 529 insertions, which should be similar to, yep, exactly here, 40 deletions, and it created those 2 files for us, right? And so now if I go into my build and run CMake again, now I need to run CMake again because as I was explaining at the beginning, in one of my first lectures that CMake generates the make files and the build file, like the make files, which sort of what's the word, instrumentize, or they run the build for you. And so in the make file, there's a list of files that need to get compiled, and we need to regenerate our make files so that these lists are remade with the new files. So essentially, if you've created your own header or C file and then you're trying to make and you're getting some weird errors like can't find this, that, and the other, and you're like, hey, I've created it, it's in the right folder, you need to run CMake again so that the whole build system is made aware of these new files that you've created. So I run CMake again, and then I can make, and hopefully this should just build. Default font size. Yes, okay, so this is a problem of the fact that I moved the default font size from draw.h into TUM font because I wanted to pull everything to do with fonts out of draw.h. Because I didn't apply this commit to my branch, I haven't got this TUM font include TUM font.h line, which is needed to get the define default font size. So this makes sense. So just without actually merging this other commit, I would just modify my main and include that header file. So we go up to the top and we'll add it here. Include TUM font. So I'll leave him, and then we'll run make again. Should work for us now. Yes, so we're good. And so this should just run like normal, with the fonts are all the default essentially. As you can see here, the fonts like the same and blah, 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 right? So that is how you use the cherry pick command to merge these new features. Now, we are still sort of actively developing the FreeRTOS emulator. We're finding bugs, and also like if you go into the pull request and look at all the things we're trying to do, like I'm trying to do some thread safe printing and whatnot, and I tried to do it, had some issues, and I'll get to it at some point in the next few weeks or months before the project is when I have my deadline. And so you're going to need to know this process, because as I bring out fixes to bugs that people know, or new features, because this whole course has been done very quickly, so I'm also sorry that these things aren't finished now that you're using them, but at least I have time before the project starts to get certain things fixed or implemented. But this means that you're going to need to use your Git knowledge to actually integrate these new changes or features into your code base, because it's probably not going to be super beneficial for you to just delete your fork and then refork it. I mean, it's good practice as well for you if you're going to work as a software engineer to be able to keep up to date with an upstream, meaning you can actually continuously take the changes from other engineers that you work with and put them into your code base, right? So that's the Git cherry pick. And so now I'm going to stop this recording here, and I'm going to go into TUM font a bit, because I implemented some very interesting things. Something that I personally actually never implemented before, and I've only used, and it was very nice to use, and I was like, oh, these students should be taught of this because it's very cool. Anyway,